and present them as he sees fit.
There are 5 items on tonight's first reading agenda, but really 3 key issues. And we'll take the first items A and B together as they both relate to municipal electrical aggregation. The first is a resolution authorizing the execution of a letter of intent with the Will County Governmental League to participate in an aggregation program. And the second part is a resolution to submit and approve a ballot question regarding the operation of electrical aggregation as an opt-out program. You may recall that we had a representative from one of the retail suppliers of electricity, happened to be a Downers Grove resident, who provided us some extensive background on the electrical aggregation program just a few weeks ago. Since that time, we've been working with the Will County Governmental League on an aggregation program that includes about 20 municipalities, most of them in Will County. Here to present information on this proposal are members of the Will County Governmental League, Hugh O'Hara and Michael Clemens, and they do have a presentation for us tonight. Gentlemen.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us. My name is Hugh O'Hara, and this is Mike Clemens. As Dave said, we're with the Will County Governmental League. We're an association of 32 municipalities, obviously in Will County. We're similar to the DuPage mayors and managers, though much smaller in staff. Me and Mike are 2 out of the 3. So.
Pretty good ratio, 10 to 1.
He had to leave one behind.
Bulk of our attention today. So we're not a supplier. We're not in the electric business. I'm going to have Mike present a little bit about municipal aggregation, and then I'll go over real briefly the Governmental League's program.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's essentially a 2-track process that Hugh mentioned. The first part is steps defined by state statute. This is the last part of electrical deregulation that started in the late 90s in Illinois. All other customer classes have been able to negotiate power rates on their own. The last step, in 2009, the governor amended legislation allowing municipalities to purchase power on behalf of their residents and small commercial retail customers. And the idea is to seek lower rates for electrical supply. The process is laid out in state statute and is pretty straightforward, but there are several steps. The statute says that municipalities are allowed to purchase power on behalf of their residents and small commercial retail customers who have not opted out of said program by passing an ordinance that authorizes you to do so. But there are several steps you have to take in order to be able to pass that initial ordinance. You have to submit the question by referendum to the voters. They have to approve it. After the referendum, you have to develop a plan of operation and governance that explains how you will run your program and shapes the RFP that you'll put out for bids. It explains the bid process, what kind of terms of service and rate, length, contract length that you're looking for. You have to hold 2 public hearings on that plan of operation and governance, adopt that plan, and then you're finally authorized to pass that ordinance that authorizes you to purchase power on behalf of your residents and small commercial customers. The referendum question is up on the screen. It's spelled out in statute. That's the language you have to use. Shall the Village of Downers Grove have the authority to arrange for the supply of electricity for its residential and small commercial retail customers who have not opted out of such a program? And we're targeting, with the Governmental League's program, the March 20th primary election. After you are authorized to do this, to purchase the power, you would submit an RFP to the 23 licensed electric suppliers in the state. There are about 15 that are active in the residential market. Only rates that come back lower than ComEd's rates would be accepted. You wouldn't want to raise rates. And customers have to be notified in writing that they can opt out of the program before their supplier changes. Those are done, you get a letter, it'll tell you what ComEd's current rate is, what the negotiated rate would be, and explain exactly how they would opt out, how long they have to opt out. Usually they include a card that you can just check the box and mail it back. There's also a toll-free number you can go online to opt out of the program. It's a pretty straightforward process. Key dates, December 18th is the last day to notify the county clerk that you wish to put the referendum on the ballot. January 3rd is the last day to adopt an ordinance placing, resolution placing the referendum question on the ballot. That's all targeting the March 20th primary. So what does this mean for your residents? Very little changes from a residential perspective. We're only talking about the supplier, and that's roughly 60% of your bill, the supply side of your bill. If you think the bill is broken up, 60% supply, 30% is the delivery charge that ComEd charges, and they still deliver the power no matter who's the supplier. Their power is bought by the Illinois Power Authority. Right now it comes from Direct Energy, but it could be any one of the licensed suppliers in the state. They still deliver the power, and that's roughly 30% of your bill, and the last 10% is taxes. So we're talking about the 60%. I mentioned that they still deliver the power. The bill will still come from ComEd. That doesn't change. Only the supplier's name will change. If the lights go out, you still call ComEd. They maintain the distribution system, and any resident can opt out before their supplier changes. And I'll turn it over to Hugh for the Governmental Leagues program.
We were asked in June by our board to look into the idea of not just aggregating individual municipalities, but in aggregating any of our members that would be interested in going together. The idea being that the larger the group we could put together, the better price that we could get. So we created the Will Utility Aggregation Group. You could call it WUAG, but I think it sounds pretty silly. You can see we came up with the name before we did the acronym. So the electrical aggregation process still needs to be followed exactly as it would be if you were going on your own. Each municipality still has to pass the referendum, still hold the 2 public hearings, adopt the ordinance, same as before. The thing that will change is that the operations and governance plan will be developed collectively by this group. So it would be the same across every member of the group. And then additionally, you would need to pass an intergovernmental agreement binding you together as this Will Utility Aggregation Group. That agreement is being developed by the Will County Bar Association's Municipal Government Subcommittee. So it's all the municipal attorneys in Will County are working together on it, so that the idea being that we don't have to go to the 20 towns that have signed off on this and have each one of their lawyers review it multiple times and go back and forth. We met with your attorney the other day, and she'll be a part of that process as well, so that you guys would be included if you join the group. Then we'll take everybody's electrical load, put them all together, and then take them to bid together. Obviously, it's been in the news a lot lately. This is, when we first started this, there was only 1 or 2 towns that had done it. By now, everybody's seen an article on this multiple times. For comparison, if you look at the second column that says rates per kilowatt hour, ComEd's current non-summer rate is 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour. If you were to run an opt-in program, which would essentially be that the village picks a preferred supplier, and then you give the information out to your residents that they could join this program, but they'd have to opt into it, you could get 6.3, 6.2 cents, or the 2 programs that we've looked at recently that do it that way. The opt-out programs are down in the 5.9, 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour. One community just in the last couple weeks got 5.4 cents per kilowatt hour. So the savings are much more substantial if you go with the opt-out program, because obviously you're bringing that customer base to market at once, whereas if you go opt-in, you're just whoever happens to sign up over a period of time. Currently, we have 20 communities that have signed a letter of intent to join our group. It's about 172,000 households, so it's quite a large group that we'll be taking to load at once. And the potential savings that we believe we can see in this is between 29 and $35 million. That's money that can go back into the communities that won't be going off to your ComEd bill. So in summary, the goal is to save money. Voters need to approve this in a referendum in March. The residents can opt out before anything changes. As Mike said, the new supplier will have to send letters out letting everybody know that they do have an option not to be a part of this if they so choose. And obviously, if the rates aren't lower, they won't be accepted. We'll just stick with ComEd and continue on as if nothing has changed. So Any questions, concerns?
Well, first of all, thank you again for coming out, traveling here, taking time out of your busy schedule. I shudder at the thought that there's only one person left to shut the lights off back at the office. So we appreciate you being here and taking the time to go through this with us, because obviously this is an exciting opportunity, and I think some of the earlier presentations or information we've had on it indicates that it's the kind of thing that it's not a question of whether you're going to do it, it's just how and through whom. It obviously results in savings and many different advantages. It's all in the details and how you put it together and who you go with and so on and so forth. So we appreciate this opportunity. I've got some questions and comments, but I'll open it up to my colleagues first if they have questions or comments. Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think I have many questions. I just wanted to thank a couple people and also make some comments about how beneficial I think it is. First of all, this is a great example of residents and elected officials and our staff working together, not only internally but outside of our own community. We've talked over the last few years about how important thinking of, you know, it's a cliche, but thinking outside the box and looking for new opportunities to work with other folks to try and be more lean, be more efficient, find ways to reduce the cost of operation to our residents. This is a perfect example of that. In particular, there's two residents of our community, Rich Spilkey and Dan Loftus, who really got this conversation started. We've all received emails, hard copy mails, you know, notices in IML bulletins, et cetera, about the subject and just kind of never taken it up. So I really want to thank those two Downers Grove residents for starting this discussion for us. But then in particular, you guys and Steve Quigley as well, for being proactive, for being kind of leading edge on it with your group, but also being real receptive to us. It was a month or so ago when you guys took some time out of your day to talk with Allison and I, and that's really it's I'm probably overstating it, but I don't know that it can be, if that makes any sense. But that kind of thing, being willing to have those conversations beyond jurisdictional boundaries, is, I think, critical to every municipality in Illinois. Every government agency in Illinois, and so I really appreciate you guys being open and receptive and accommodating of us. This is going to be an opportunity to save Village of Downers Grove residents and businesses, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, perhaps $1 million in electric rates, and that is very real and very important to a community who struggles mightily, both residents and the village, to make ends meet. So. To everybody involved thus far, thank you, and I remain very optimistic this is going to be a thing that turns out to be really good for us. So thank you all, everybody that's involved so far.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Other questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, well, not obviously, I'm going to be in support of this when we do vote on it. I think it's important to note that there's two very important things, is that there's a referendum question to the residents, so it's posed to the residents in that way, and then if we do move forward, there's an opt-out provision also for residents that's in the program. So it's something that we can do as an elected body to try and offer something to our residents for savings. We don't get a chance to do that very often, so I appreciate all the hard work, as Bob said, from everybody involved. But the fact that the Governmental League is here in Downers Grove, outside of Will County, I think is an example of how this village has been working lately. You know, with some of the shared and consolidation agreements that we've had here in Downers Grove, it just goes to the point that this council and our staff isn't afraid to, I'm going to say it again, Commissioner, think outside the box, think outside the village boundaries, if you will, to come up with opportunities for the benefit of our residents. So thank you, and I look forward to supporting this in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know for our residents, you know, when you get a lot of information coming at you from your village, it sounds very official, very complex. And just going back years ago when you moved into Downers Grove, well, you immediately got your bill from ComEd, you got your bill from Northern Illinois Gas. Oh, good, we get cable. You got it from, I think it was Media One or something back then, and everything was done for you. And now everything's, you know, things have just changed. And now what people need to realize is that you really have choices out there, and how we go about this, we need to be very careful. So when we talked about opt-in, opt-out, if you love ComEd, you could stay with ComEd, you could pick somebody else, but this just kind of sort of means that, you know, when people come into the village, you may have somebody else other than ComEd as your supplier, and hopefully if we do this right, we'll save you the maximum amount of money. And there was a lot of interest generated when we were talking about garbage collection and who we were going to pick and how much the sticker prices were going to be. And this is the same thing, except it's electricity. And, you know, it isn't putting the bag out, you know, once a week. It's every time you flip the light switch and turn on the TV and whatever you do. So it's much more important, and I think staff and with your help in that, we'll be able to get the word out and have everybody, you know, we'll find the best deal we can for our residents, and they're still free to go and choose to what they want to do. And we also should be aware that this is a lot of money we're talking about, and there's going to be a lot of, for lack of a better term, lobbying going on. You know, a lot of conflicting statements, and I think as a council and staff, we're just going to have to slog through all the materials and things that we're going to be getting and work with you if that passes, and look over the intergovernmental agreements and just do what's best for all of our residents. So let's get the process going. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Durkin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The only question I have is more for staff. I know last week it was, or 2 weeks ago, we had voted to become members or renew our membership, DuPage Mayors and Managers, which is a COG. Will County's a COG. Is the DuPage Mayors and Managers doing anything that Will County's doing here, or has Will County just beaten them to the start line? Where do we stand with that? Because I'm sure there's some residents either in the audience or at home or who read this in newspapers or posts or wherever they're going to get it, tweets or twits, just so we have some information we can give out tonight on this.
Sure.
We can ask them that tomorrow night at the business meeting.
You may recall that their DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference Executive Director Mark Belogo, when he was addressing this council a few weeks ago, indicated that they had a two-prong approach to electrical aggregation. First was to gather information and distribute it to the municipalities, and they have done so. The second was to gauge interest in an aggregation program, who's doing it, who would be interested in cooperating. I did see the results of a survey that organization had done. They put that out last week. It appears to us that Will County Governmental League is a little more advanced in this. They've already got the program up and running. They have the letter of intent. They've got a draft IGA going. And so staff is recommending that because of where Will County Governmental League is in the process, that we start now and work with them.
Great. Well, I support this. I professionally have an association with the Will County Governmental League, just like I do with DuPage Mayors and Managers and others. So I firmly believe in the staff, knowing them a number of years, and I will be supporting this and commend them for being the first ones out to start this, and hopefully that number of 20 participants now that you have today, hopefully by the time this actually gets rolling and out by March, you'll have hopefully double to 3 times that, because then this is significant savings across the board for everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Schnell?
Just a comment more. When we start going through this process, there is going to be an educational component for the residents, so they understand, one, what the referendum question really means, but two, what this can mean to them from a savings point of view.
That is correct. There's an educational program that's required and really a key element to this whole referendum process. We would be working with the aggregation group to prepare those materials and get them out to all the Downers Grove residents.
And then the other thing, we talked about this today during our little question and answer period, but for those residents that are out there that are having infrastructure issues with ComEd, the fact that they would opt into a different supplier of electricity has nothing to do with the, I know it doesn't, but it's more for the people out there who are shaking their head. It has nothing to do with the infrastructure nor the ability for us to get ComEd to update our infrastructure. That would still go forward whether or not we would go into a program like this.
That's correct. ComEd does not make or lose money on the supply of electricity. They make and lose money in the delivery of this, in operating the distribution system. And so our choice to a different supplier would have no impact at all on ComEd's.
Okay, or their ability to fix what's wrong with their system.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rankin?
I just wanted to clarify for residents, I had asked Dave about this, if someone has done this already on their own, they cannot be a part of this until their contract ends with their current supplier. Is that right?
That's a point that'll need to be negotiated in the contract with whichever supplier we ultimately go with. Will they become a member of the program when their current contract runs out, or will they have to wait until the next time that the contract would be renewed? That's something that'll have to be negotiated with the new supplier, and that's something that we'll be looking to the utility aggregation group to direct us on what they want us to negotiate in that contract. Because obviously, the more stipulations you put on there, the price inches its way up. So that'll be something that the group will ultimately decide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just to pick up on Commissioner Rankin's point, this is obviously something that's not new. It may be new in terms of what we're talking about, but the ability to pursue electricity aggregation has been around for a while, and as was just pointed out, there's a number of businesses and organizations and private residences even have already taken advantage of it. What this really is an opportunity to do it on an aggregate basis where you get the economies of scale, basically. You get a better deal because you got more people involved, and one person can get one price, 10 can get another. The entire village of Downers Grove can get a third, and now we're talking about at least 150,000 customers if we go forward with this, or 460,000 residents in Will County and surrounding counties, and we add that, and it's basically aggregating to get a larger and larger pool, and therefore presumably driving a better price because you have more numbers negotiating, and it works out better for both sides. So that's really what this is we're really talking about creating an avenue by which residents can take advantage of a much larger pool to swim in than they would if they were doing it on their own. And here, it would be even larger pool than if we were simply doing it as the Village of Downers Grove. We'd be doing it as the Village of Downers Grove plus all the participating municipalities through the Will County Governmental League. And as Commissioner Durkin said, the more that join, the better it is. What is the and maybe all this is just negotiation down the road, but what is the contemplated term of the actual contracts with the electrical supplier? I mean, are you contemplating 1, 2, 3-year terms?
Yeah, I think we'll get prices for a 1, 2, and 3-year term. It's been sort of we have a smaller steering committee of our group that's met a few times, and they're sort of directing us in the 1-year term to start, just to kind of get everybody's feet wet, get them comfortable with the process. Additionally, we have 2 communities in Will County that did electrical aggregation in the first round of communities, and their first 2-year contract would end at the same time as if we do a 1-year contract, and they've indicated that they'd have an interest in joining our group at that point, and we'd like to make that available to our members. So we're thinking probably 1 year, but if the group decides for a different term, or if we can negotiate a way to get those communities in, that'll be something that the group will decide. It'll be a 1 community, 1 vote type deal. So.
And again, I realize this is all in the negotiation, but what is it contemplated in terms of the term of the intergovernmental agreement? I mean, if you sign on with this particular one, what is it being envisioned in terms of the term of it? Because to Commissioner Durkin's point, obviously one of the advantages of doing this is that you can change who your supplier is, you can change which aggregation group you're with. Any ideas as to what the term of the IGA is?
Yeah, the term of at least the first IGA would be the term of the first contract. So you'd be locked in for that time. We feel that it'd be best to let everybody kind of see how the process goes. If they don't like where it went over the course of the first term, then you'd be able to not renew it and either go with a different group, go on your own, whatever you so chose.
Okay. And I think that's important for folks to understand, is that the real key here is getting the referendum question on the ballot and passed, which is pretty open-ended. I mean, it simply said that, shall the Village of Downers Grove have the authority to arrange for the supply of electricity for its residential and small commercial retail customers who have not opted out of such a program. So if you don't want to be in it, you can get out of it, but we at least need to have the referendum authority to participate in that kind of negotiation on behalf of residents, and we can either do that with the Will County Governmental League, we can do it with DuPage mayors and managers, should they put together something that's more advantageous. We can work with different suppliers, we could back out all together and work with our own supplier if we wanted to. That's the real beauty of it. And I think that's important to understand, is that there's 2 different issues here. One is whether we want to set the table in order to have this meal, and what actually comes out on the plates is negotiable. And as long as we're not locked into 5-10-year deals, then I really don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do this. Could really just creating a vehicle by which our residents, as Commissioner Barnett pointed out, can save a significant amount of money on their electricity. So all these other questions I think are key, and they're going to come up in the drafting. But if it sounds to me like in the beginning we're not going to be talking about more than a couple of years terms, then no one's really locked into anything. I mean, if you see how it goes, and if there are other opportunities, no offense to present company, but if there are other opportunities that become more attractive, we have the option of pursuing those as well.
Absolutely. We've really stressed that point with even our membership, that we're trying to put as many opportunities for the communities to opt out of this program if they don't like the direction that it's going,
right,
so that nobody's locked into it. Mike, real quick, was mentioning when it comes to these bids, the way that they work is they're generally good for 12 to 24 hours. It's something that will be in the intergovernmental agreement where your village in that intergovernmental agreement will appoint someone to accept or reject those bids, or vote to accept or reject those bids on your behalf when they come in on that day, because obviously you wouldn't have time to convene a board meeting and sit there and negotiate, because it's a group negotiation,
right,
where you're at there. So it'd be one person from each community voting to accept or reject those bids.
And that's a process we've used for bond issuance.
Right.
It's called a parameters
Right.
ordinance, so we've done that before.
Right, that's nothing new. And that's the other thing worth noting is there's an awful lot of competition in this field. I think someone mentioned getting barraged with emails. I think there's at least a dozen, if not more, organizations that have reached out and contacted us recently about wanting to be the electrical supplier. The advantage here, of course, is going through an even larger group than we could if we were simply on our own. But there's a lot of different options out there. Going back to the setting the table analogy about getting the referendum question, Commissioner Schnell is absolutely right. I mean, that really is the key, is getting that passed, and then it allows all the options to take place. So my main concern is making sure that when the election day comes around, the primary comes around, that residents actually know that this is a good thing, because you could read it, and it sounds like you're giving power to the government, and I could see people saying absolutely not, and they're not really understanding what it's all for. So it's not just a public education component in terms of holding a couple public meetings. I mean, like with any referendum, if you don't get out there and promote it and advertise it, there's a risk that folks would shoot themselves in the foot and not realize that this is actually creating them, creating an opportunity for them with no out-of-pocket cost and no obligation. I mean, it's almost too good to be true. But that's what I'm afraid of, is that if we don't get the referendum passed, then all these accolades are for naught.
Well, that's one of the great benefits of this proposed partnership, is now that we would have 20 or more communities working together, getting a scale economy on the preparation of the materials, the distribution of the materials, and we really could, stretch our effort, do things that we couldn't do alone as a staff in working partnership with the league.
And are there any issues with the village's ability to actually actively promote this referendum? I mean, I recall there being issues about that in the past, so that's really my question, is there has to be some external source that is advocating for the passage of the referendum within the community, because I could just see through lack of information or knowledge it being voted, not passing, and no one would realize what it was that they just voted down.
Right.
And that would be a shame.
That's why ENS is on the group that's going to draft the agreement, to make sure we meet those parameters as well.
Okay, perfect.
Mayor?
And then just one last thing, and I'll turn it back, because it's a workshop, so we can bounce around. It bears repeating that this has absolutely, positively nothing to do with reliability of electrical service. Zero. This only has to do with the cost. So this isn't any kind of panacea for the issues that we've been dealing with respect to the actual juice coming through the pipe. Commissioner Durkin.
Yeah, real quick, just in line with what we had just spoken about with DuPage mayors and managers, is there any other interest, or would other COGs be invited or available to join you with what you're presenting to us today? So instead of having DuPage mayors and managers recreate what you've done, you've got a rolling 20 people or 20 communities, Southwest Conference of Mayors, Northwest Conference, I mean, there's so many of them, to just join in on you, to get on the bandwagon. Is that something that's available?
It's something that we would need to go back to our board. At some level, it becomes, do we get too big?
Okay.
We don't think we're anywhere near that point, but it's something that our board would need to talk about and give us some direction on. How large do they want to be?
So the real timeline here for us is really just to do this because of the deadline for the referendum question.
Right, that's the key.
That's the key.
That's correct, because as Hugh was saying, there are several points in this process where the village could say, okay, we've learned more, and this is not for us, and we
Correct.
can withdraw without penalty.
Yeah, I mean, the key is getting the referendum passed. All the rest of this is,
Yeah.
doesn't mean a thing if we don't get that passed. Because there's all kinds of options available to us, but we got to get this on the ballot. And I haven't heard one good reason why not to put this referendum on the ballot. Who we work with, what we choose, details, terms, all that can be worked out later, but none of that happens unless we get this passed.
Outside of the 20, how many, and outside of us now being 21 possibly, how many other communities are entertaining this and be able to meet the deadline of December?
There's at least half a dozen others that we.
So really, we could have 25 by the time we would join her up to 30.
I think 25 is probably about where we'll max out. Just because of the deadlines.
Okay.
You know, as you guys know, November, December, tough to get board meetings together. A lot of towns cancel one or two. The deadline to have the ordinance put on the ballot is January 3rd, so
Okay,
it's really more of a time issue. Than
sure.
Downers Grove, we're always open for business.
So even though we're talking about a utility here and it pertains to Commonwealth Edison, is there any movement that you guys know or staff know of possibly doing this for natural gas or any of the other utilities that are out there? Or is it just electrical thing that it seems that everybody has gotten on the bandwagon of?
The municipalities don't have the authority right now to aggregate natural gas. The market's a little more, honestly, the prices are just a little bit better in natural gas right now, so there's not a ton of savings to be had there, but there's no, right now, I don't believe municipalities have the authority to do natural gas this way.
Okay.
Individuals can, but municipalities can't aggregate.
Okay. Well, that's the last of my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to electrical aggregation? We might be able to negotiate in sub-pump discharge.
That's enough. Noted.
Hello again, Mr.
Tom
McBride.
McBride, 545 Chicago Avenue. I just have a couple points of clarification for me, perhaps. As I understand it, the referendum is going to be in March, but we have to sign the intergovernmental agreement in February before we're authorized.
Well, we could make that conditional. There's all kinds of clauses that lawyers can put into contracts that it's all conditional upon passage of the referendum. I'm sure we'll put in something like that.
Okay, this is what it says here. And the other thing is, what are the real fees to the user, to us as users, going to be? I know it mentions down here $250 per household per year, but is that true?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that because I said no out-of-pocket costs. As I understand it, and a lot of this, well, as I understand it, that $250 comes out more, I mean, for lack of a better word, correct me if I'm wrong, it comes out of the savings.
That's correct. The fee is to cover the cost of the energy consultant that we're using.
Right, I understand.
It will be included in the new rate. The rates that are in the other communities that have done an opt-out program, they all include a consultant or broker's fee in there. And it works out, it's a per usage-based fee per kilowatt hour. And the fee we're talking about, the rate would capture per household $2.50.
And if we like somebody else who does $2 or $1.50, that's the beauty of it, is we can go with somebody else. But as I understand it, the important part to understand is that it's taken out of the delta of the savings. So it's not as though there's some additional charge. Right now, you're already paying too much. So you'll be paying less,
I
but
understand, but you're still paying a fee.
All those rates.
you're already paying it.
All those rates have the broker fee.
Included.
Yeah. I mean, that's how
That's not
that's
the
how it
rate
works.
that you're getting from the supplier, that's the rate you're charging us, the customer, which includes the fee, correct? I mean, let's call a spade, we're paying a fee. What needs to be done, we've got to pay the consultant, but
Well, but
don't obfuscate it by saying it's included in
Yeah,
your
I
savings.
understand what you're saying, but it comes out of a pool of money that wouldn't exist but for the program.
So instead of saving
Apples and-
$150 a year, you're going to save $148 a year.
Well, right. But I mean, you wouldn't be saving anything if we don't do this.
True. I understand that, but it's still a fee and you're still paying it, so people need to know that. Thank you.
Yes. Part of the dollars that you're already paying would be allocated elsewhere.
The first part of this question was about the intergovernmental agreement. We anticipate putting it out to all the communities before the end of this year for review, and we would include language in there that if the referendum doesn't pass, you wouldn't be included.
Right.
And there would be a drop dead date that the village could exit out of the intergovernmental agreement before you're locked in.
Right. And more importantly, if someone has an issue with whatever fee is negotiated, they can opt out of the program altogether. So there's no obligation to do anything. I mean, can't beat that.
Hey, Mayor. Follow up on Tom for a minute.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to follow up on Mr. LeCrun's comment. That speaks to two things. One, the reality of the situation, which I think everybody here gets, but it also speaks to the importance of, to your point, Mayor, the process between now and referendum day. Because you could see how
Absolutely, yeah.
that could turn into some ridiculous blogosphere fiasco of misinformation. And it's going to be pretty critical that we work with a team of 20 or 30 other communities who are all helping craft that message and figure out exactly how to lay that stuff out there, because that's exactly the kind of thing that could get ridiculous if it wasn't handled well.
Well, and to pick up on that, I think the key to getting the referendum passed is to focus on the benefits of the authority and not the details of what some contract might be. Because someone will get tied up in a $2 fee and misunderstand it, and then that'll be the end of it. And then they'll end up, they're not even giving themselves the opportunity to save money, and that would be a shame. So I've said that again, and I'll keep saying it. That's the most important part. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you.
Good to see you. How are you tonight?
Always good to see you. Laura Crawford, Downers Grove Area Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I want to congratulate staff as well as council for thinking out of the box. That was a challenge that the mayor had for all of us when he was elected, and I appreciate that you are taking a lot of different items under consideration. You may or may not know the Chamber has a similar program that we are offering businesses. The company that we're working with is the same, Direct Energy, and the rate is the same, just as an FYI. I have two questions tonight. I don't know that you'll be able to answer either, but I think it's some questions that you should be considering. The first one, after a year of trying to determine what a core service that this village was going to be providing its residents, do you consider this a core service? I don't expect an answer to that, but I think it's something for you to consider, especially as maybe a year from now, and I know Direct Energy also offers the aggregation for natural gas. Where does it end? Deregulation being regulated, kind of. It's just kind of funny, actually. My number two question would be, I know from the Chamber's program that through aggregation, we are paid a commission. We are very open and clear about that. Considering what this village is going through, I would be very interested in knowing whether Will County Intergovernmental League will be benefiting, or will it be the village of Downers Grove? And if so, will there be a percentage rebated back to the consumers? So I don't think either one of those questions can be answered right now, but I just want to put them forth to you for consideration.
Those are very good questions, and all those will have to be addressed in the intergovernmental agreement and the contract with the supplier. You betcha.
We can't answer some part of that question. And we don't know who our supplier is going to be, so it's,
Right now it's direct.
that's not.
I thought you mentioned
No, they're ComEd supplier. We don't have a supplier that we've chosen. That's when we go to market, we'll choose a supplier then. The governmentally, in terms of any fee to us, our members have asked us in terms of a fee to not collect any fee from our members. So in terms of our membership, we'll be getting nothing. They did ask that we put on a fee that would be commensurate to what your dues would be if you were a member of the governmental league to any community that is not a member of the governmental league. In Downers Grove's case, your population works out to about $20,000 in dues to the governmental league. They've asked that we put a fee on to collect roughly that amount from Downers Grove. We have no intention of going above that. It works out to 1/10,000 of a cent, I think, on a kilowatt hour basis. So it's simply a way for us to recoup the costs that our other members are already paying.
And that prompted staff in the preliminary discussions with this, with Hugh and Michael, to start talking about, well, if we're going to pay it through some kind of rate or fee through the aggregation, perhaps we should look at also becoming a member. It's just a different way to look at it, so we may have information about that when we bring the intergovernmental agreement forward.
Okay.
But again, I think for what we're looking at as far as the referendum, we need to focus on whether or not residents want to pass that first. The rest of this stuff can be negotiated later.
This is all an academic discussion if the referendum isn't passed.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
And so maybe it's a good time to reiterate what the actual resolutions are for consideration under the council tonight. First is a resolution authorizing just a letter of intent to continue working with the Will County Governmental League. And again, there are multiple opportunities to withdraw from the program without penalty. The second one is the more important one, which is the resolution authorizing submittal of a ballot question regarding the operation of electricity aggregation program as an opt-out program. So we're looking for both, we recommend both, but really item B is the more important one.
And I agree with Bob. It's going to be very easy to get bogged down in all of these numbers and things out there that we may or may not use, because if the referendum passes, it's conceivable the village will decide to do it. We could conceivably do it on our own. So I mean, I think it's very important that people understand that and understand really what it is that we're asking in the referendum, and whether or not that saving that much in electric costs is important to them. So.
Yeah, that is critical, and again, it bears repeating that we don't want to get the cart before the horse and get bogged down into the terms and concerns and objections about what the intergovernmental agreement might be and what supplier we might be dealing with, because all of that is a completely academic conversation if we don't get the referendum passed.
Right.
And if we pass a referendum, we still don't have to do anything. It just gives us the authority to do it. No, that's my concern. These are all valid questions. I don't want to suggest that none of them are valid, but yes, we will take those up when the time comes, but there's nothing to take up and discuss until the referendum is in place. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you. Maybe a different way of approaching it is that each and every resident will have an opportunity to vote twice. The first time is on the referenda, and if they accept that, they can still vote again as to whether they want to be in it or not. So if they don't like the arrangements, if they think that there's something going on, they always can vote the second time and go with their own supplier. So they're really voting twice, and they just open up all kinds of possibilities to their benefit if they help us pass the referenda, and then they still have the option of opting out. So that's their second vote. So different approach to it. That's all. Thanks.
That's a good way of putting it. Any other questions from the audience? Mr. Falish. These are all good points. Don't get me wrong. We're keeping track of them. They're all good points.
Frank Falish, 820 Prairie. Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to happen when one of these companies goes bankrupt, because I don't understand how they can compete and not run into trouble.
I mean, again, that's something that can be dealt with in the contracts, but go ahead.
If one of the companies let's say the supplier that we chose did fail and was no longer able to supply power, ComEd is the provider of last resort in the state of Illinois, in this area of Illinois. They're mandated to provide you with service. You would switch back to ComEd and you would pay their current rate. They don't penalize you if you go back, so you would just be paying the same rate that everybody else is paying who's not a part of the program. And if that were the case, we've been directed that ideally what we would do then is rebid the contract and go with somebody else and continue to try and save money.
Good, thank you.
Other questions or comments on this item from the audience? Gentlemen.